Go ahead, Neelam.
So actually the topic is finding inner freedom in times of challenge, body-oriented inquiry. So I want to speak a little bit about inquiry itself also, and also about, challenges and what happens when challenges are here, and how to deal with it, which is really inquiry practice, right? Which is really, being present with what is not different than any other time, right? So maybe just a little silence together, a moment of silence, a little guided meditation. I'm just, this is such a foundation of when we sit together. So let's just take a moment here quietly. Just really noticing presence or silence as you are sitting here. Then we are also going to take a little moment to notice the sensations of your body. And if you are sitting with your eyes closed, maybe open your eyes softly, gently, and just bring your attention to what is present on the level of sensation. And you know by now that we are not looking for anything. We are not trying to change or fix or make anything be different. So just very practically noticing what is here at this moment. And if you see your attention moving, just gently bring it back, and let's notice some basics, like maybe the weight of your body where you're sitting. Or maybe your feet on the ground. Or maybe like I'm leaning against the chair here, maybe you can notice your body leaning against something, or maybe your legs are touching part of the surface you're sitting on. Just notice that. So with your eyes open, this is all information for your brain, for your nervous system about we are here. That's very important for inquiry or for dealing with any type of past that arises. So with your eyes open, you can actually look around a little bit, see where you are, even though it may be very familiar to you. But just take a moment, just really look, really take it in. There's a lot of information that comes through the eyes directly into the nervous system in the brain. So just look around, even behind you. This little reptilian brain will be very happy, with this information. Like, here we are, it's okay. Nothing is happening. There's no tiger in the room, right? Good. So just notice, what is it like having done this? Is your experience still the same? Is it different? Good. And just another moment of silence. You can sit with your eyes closed, your eyes open. Good, good. So welcome everybody. This little practice that we just did, is such a foundation for inquiry. And if you haven't done it already, if you haven't heard me speak about it, or if you haven't practiced this with me, I would encourage you to do it, because it does something for the nervous system and brain. I mean, first of all, we really sit and we recognize presence. But we also understand that we are in a human body, and when past arises here, when past arises in the nervous system, it shows up as sensations, as feelings, as thoughts, as emotions. And it sometimes looks very, very real. It looks like really there's something going on, there's something happening. So we want to have a way to remind the nervous system and the brain that we are actually here in this moment, right? That the past is not really actually happening right now. And that's a very direct way, this little meditation. You can go to my website, and there's a video that is on the website that you can watch. That is that meditation, basically, and you can just practice it with me, right? Together. That's why it's there, so we can practice. We can practice together. So, I want to start a little broader, because it's never about one thing, really. It's all roads lead to Rome, right? Everything just really brings us back to presence, right? So there are many elements that are necessary for awakening and for freedom. Because when we say finding inner freedom, right, what does that mean? Many elements that are needed for that. So we need a strong desire for freedom, strong desire for truth. We need birth in a human body, and I will explain this a little more in a moment. We also need trust, which really is trust in the truth itself, trust in the teaching, but ultimately the trust is in our true nature. When there is full trust, that's when awakening happens, right? When we are no longer relying on the past, even just for a moment. So we also need discrimination because we need to be able to differentiate between past and present. You know, it's very powerful when we can recognize past for what it really is. And when I say past, I mean unmet, unfinished tendencies that have been here for a long time. You know, sometimes they arise again, right, to be seen. Also, when I say past, I mean really a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding meaning anytime, anywhere, individually or collectively, that we have believed that what we are looking for is not already here. So anytime we believe that truth is not here, that presence is not here, that love is not here, that tenderness is not here, that's what I call the past. So when past arises here, you know, which it does, right? As I said already, it looks very, very real. It shows up in your nervous system. It shows up as a sensation, as feeling, as emotion, as thoughts. And when it arises, you know, which we all know what it looks like when it does arise, right? We really have these three options. We can either follow the arising past, you know, which is just reenactment. We can try to suppress it in some way. And both of those ways make the past stronger. Or we can allow ourselves to experience it. Right? We can allow the past to arise and for us to be aware of it in the moment. And that's what I call inquiry. So that's one of the reasons why we need birth in the human body, because here we are, we have, you know, we need the brain, we need the intellect, we need the intellect for discrimination. Discrimination meaning really recognizing the past for what it is. You know, when you can say, this is the past, whenever you can see what arises, you know that's not who you are, right? Whenever you can see it, that's the past. So we need intellect for that. We need to discriminate. We also need intellect for inquiry because, you know, what inquiry is to direct your attention inward, right? So we can use the mind, we can use the intellect to actually look within. What we also need, though, in the human body, and why this is so important to birth in a human body for freedom, is because we need the nervous system. And we need the nervous system to experience the arising past. You see, otherwise it's either a reenactment, right? I mean, otherwise the past doesn't have an opportunity to end, right? Because it's either reenactment, right? Look at animals, you know, when tendencies arise in animals, there is just either acting on it, right? There's acting on it, basically. Humans are the only species that can self-reflect. We can say, hey, what is this? Who am I? What's going on? That's intellect. We need that. So when I speak about inquiry, I speak about changing the direction of your looking, right? Because we all know when past arises, it's very easy for us to go into a story, into an interpretation of what is. Right? So, you know, very quickly, before we know, we are in our thinking about what's going on. So inquiry means to change the direction of your looking. Instead of looking out there, to look within. and to really meet the arising past, because the moment you meet it, that's the end of it in the moment. The moment you're willing to say, okay, let me just be here, right? That's the end of the past in the moment. So also when I speak about inquiry, you know, and when I teach inquiry, it's a very sensation-based inquiry. And I want to just explain very quickly, very briefly, why sensation-based, right? Because we have, you know, we could be, the mind needs a place to focus on for a moment. Right? Thoughts, we know thoughts just run, you know, millions of thoughts in a second. Very difficult to keep your attention here. You know, we know emotions, feelings may be closer to our natural state. But emotional body is very volatile. So you put your attention on it, you're present for a moment, and then another moment you're back in the story. Sensation is much slower, you know, it still changes, right? But it stays around a little longer, so just enough so we can put our attention on it. It's also a very direct way to communicate with your nervous system and your brain. That's really key, you know, because again, past arises, it shows up in your nervous system. You can't communicate with it through thinking. You have to communicate with it through the way that it, you know, understands, with its sensation. Nervous system sensation, that's the language of the nervous system. That's also the lower parts of our brain, you know, communicate through the sensation. Very, very important. So when we do inquiry that is sensation-based, we really have the opportunity to, capacity to meet the past very directly. Actually, not only meet it, but grow the capacity in the nervous system, you know, to be here. So when past arises, there's actually, you know, some capacity to be here. We just did this, you know, 3-week program. Some of you participated on the role of the nervous system in awakening and freedom. And I'm not going to be repeating this unless later maybe talk a little bit more about capacity, because it's so key, right? So we can be present when past arises. So how is it going so far? I just want to check in. So far, so good. Do you understand? Did anybody need to speak? Did you have any questions about it so far? How's it going?
Maybe just to suggest that people, either you can raise your hand by clicking on the participant button, and then at the bottom corner of the screen, the bottom part of the screen, there's an option that says raise hand. Or you can enter something on the chat thread. But if nobody comes forward, I just assume, Neelam, that it's okay. It's understood.
Good, you know, I'm just checking in.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Good. So, you know,
Leslie has Leila has a question. Okay, so Leila, I'm going to unmute you. Hold on, I have to find you first. Here you go. Okay. So you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I missed a word. I don't know if, anyway, the sentence started, when there is true trust, that's when fill in the blank happens.
That's when awakening happens.
Kind of an important word.
You know, because, you know, the reason why we are not aware of presence at all times right now, or at any given time, is because we don't fully trust it. We still, consciously or not, trust the past, right? So this process that leads to awakening, you know, because awakening happens in a moment, but there's, on the way there's this process. It takes us from knowing present to trusting the past, to knowing present, to trusting the past, to knowing present, to trusting the past. However long that needs to go on, right? Which is a normal thing. It's normal. It happens like that. Right? But then eventually, at some point, there's this moment that we go like, aha, you know. Yeah, and then that's when awakening happens, because there's no more going, you know, no more trusting the past, right? We go like, really, this is true, right? You know what I mean? This is actually true. What they are saying, this is actually true. And that's what awakening is, really actually, right? You know, and that can happen in that moment when there's finally enough trust. Right? Yes, but how we get there, you know, obviously, you know, it just takes us back and forth, right? Until we get to this place. Does that answer your question, do you think? Did you need to say anything more?
Thank you.
No?
Okay, so I'm going to, if you're good, Lala, I'm going to mute you again. Okay, good, great. So go ahead, Neelam.
Good.
Actually, let me just check with you whether you could turn your mic down a little bit. It's on a very high setting. That would help.
How about that? Is that good?
Yes, just say something.
Is that better now? Or?
Yes, very much better.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Good. So, going back to our topic a little bit, there are many challenges that we experience in a lifetime. We can say collectively, globally. When I say globally, you know, it means collectively, but I also mean all humans on the planet, right? Individually. You know, and experiencing challenges, that's normal. It's a natural thing. Right? It's really difficult to find a lifetime that does not have challenges in it. I don't know if you know that story of a woman that came to Buddha when Buddha was alive, and her son just died, a young child, and she brought the body of her son, and she said to Buddha, "Help me, you have to bring him back." And Buddha said to her, "You know, I can't do that," and she insisted, she was really insistent, and she said, "No, you have to help me, you know, the desperation of mother's heart, right? This is, you know, too much, you have to help me." And finally Buddha says, you know, if you go and talk to people and visit different places, and if you can bring me pieces from a house, from a household that has never experienced loss, then I'm going to help you. And she traveled, you know, far and wide, and she couldn't find a house that has never experienced loss. And so in that moment, you know, she came back and she said to him, "Well, I couldn't." And that's, you know, how she became his disciple. So sometimes we have this idea that, you know, awakening or enlightenment means no problems anymore, right? Which of course, that's not how it is. And, you know, awakening, that's also sometimes erroneous idea that awakening means no more arising of the past, which isn't true either, right? That's why I make the distinction between awakening and freedom. Right? you know, this little different. But the past still keeps arising. And the only difference, you know, when we talk about challenges and we think, well, maybe when there's awakening and there's freedom, there's no more challenges in life. And I say, you know, what needs to happen, right? It's going to happen anyway. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, the body is limited. It's going to go through whatever it needs to go through, and eventually it's going to be done, right? But what changes with awakening and freedom is, what changes is really the capacity to be present to the challenge. That's what really changes. It's different, you know. It's different capacity to be here all together. So when challenges arise, which they inevitably do, you know, there's more capacity to be here with what is present. Collectively, let's look at collectively first. You know, a big challenge that we are experiencing, there's many challenges. I'm just trying to keep it short. You know, one of the biggest challenges we experience collectively right now, for example, is climate change. Climate change, we all are experiencing it. It's a collective, you know, challenge, right? Climate change leads to changes in the environment. That leads to migration. That leads to loss of sources for food and water. That leads to immigration. That leads to survival strategies becoming stronger and stronger, right? If you look on the planet right now, there's a lot of polarity going on. There's a lot of radical beliefs, and there's a lot of politically, when you look not just here but in other places, many radical beliefs about, you know, protecting ourselves, and we are important and what needs to be done, and we don't want anybody else, you know, and so on and so forth, right? It's a very collective, you know, it's a very collective experience. But also, you know, what I believe is that because human body is animal in origin, right? So, you know, the reptilian, the limbic brain, the reptilian brain, the nervous system, you know, we are connected with other species on the planet. I believe that, for example, a challenge, a global challenge or collective challenge like climate change is affecting our physiology. And that in our physiology, we experience different kinds of stress, you see, because of the change. Like, you know, I don't know if you are aware, like if they are animals, like if there was a tsunami coming, for example, and animals knew ahead of time that it's time to leave, right? It's like innate sense, you know, like humans being animal in origin, we experience that sense of something is changing, something is not quite right. Maybe it's going to affect our survival, but we don't have any place to go, right? There's no place to run, you know, here we are. So it affects our physiology, for example. We might be conscious of it or not, right? We might be aware of it or not. You know, but it's a challenge. So individually, you know, we for sure experience challenges in life, many kinds of challenges. Illness, trauma, end of relationship, challenges in relationship, loss of work, loss of source of income. What happens in those moments when challenge is present? So there's something that happens in our nervous system also. Because when challenges are present, a lot of the times, not always, you know, but a lot of the times, our nervous system responds in, you know, fight, flight, or freeze, contraction, right? And that means that it diminishes our ability to be here. You know, a challenge arises, and that something happens in our nervous system because of that, and it diminishes our ability to be here. And what also often happens is that when challenges are present, that unresolved patterns of the past arise as well. So not only we are dealing with already diminished capacity to be here, you know, like let's take an example of an illness, right? You know, not only there is loss of, you know, capacity to function, there's diminished capacity to be here. There are changes in life, you know, we're losing a sense of what we are connected to, you know, and what we know in life, right? But then also we might have some past tendencies arise that are connected to, you know, or even just our survival instinct or survival strategy, right? Connected to falling ill or not being able to survive or not being able to take care of yourself, you know. So we are dealing with these two different things, right? Already diminished capacity to be here. And also challenges that arise, tendencies that arise from the past that are triggered by what's going on in the present. So of course, it's very tempting, you know, to want to focus our attention out there when challenges are present. You know, it's very tempting to try to fix and change things in your world. And of course, we do need to attend to circumstances, you know, there's no question about that. But if we are looking for presence and freedom, you know, what we most of all need to attend to is, you know, where we are at in a moment. Right? And, you know, again, diminished capacity in the nervous system means, you know, there's so many ways we can try to address this, right? But knowing, if we know that there is a diminished capacity in our nervous system, we know that the way to address it will be through sensation-based inquiry, where we can very directly, you know, where we can very directly be present to what arises here. So, if you have any questions about that, did you want to say anything about that?
Neelam, maybe, you know, we've had a whole series of sessions. A lot of them were focused on a particular life challenge. And so you're speaking more generally.
Sure.
And you know what's interesting and what I guess hasn't been brought in by other teachers yet is the focus on the nervous system.
Sure.
And I find that very very helpful, because you know at some level it's there for all of us.
Sure.
And if we are not fully in tune with it, it'll be there in the background, and it'll push us one way or the other way without us being fully aware of it. So I find it very helpful to include that fully. You know, I can see how that makes a lot of sense. And you know, in a lot of non-dual self-inquiry, inquiry into, you know, what's here, often, you know, sensations are left out. You know, often what's looked at is thoughts or emotions, but not necessarily sensations. So I just find it very just striking and interesting to really go to that level of sensations and the nervous system, and to put the attention there, because we don't usually, it's almost like it's a program that runs in the background, but that we're not fully aware of.
What we don't realize is that oftentimes the states that we experience are the result of where the nervous system is at. So we can deal with the emotion, but it's not going to address the issue, you see.
Mm-hmm.
We can deal with the thoughts, but it's not going to address the issue. And also what we don't always understand is that when past arises, and that often happens in response to life in general, but also in particularly when challenges are present, when past arises, and if there is no capacity in the nervous system to be here, then the nervous system is going to go into fight, flight, or freeze, overwhelm, collapse, and then that's what we are really dealing with. And the states that we experience are the results of that. So if somebody is feeling depressed, or somebody is feeling down, or somebody is feeling diminished in some way, or somebody's feeling like they can't function in the world, they're addressing it all more on this level, and that's kind of more on the level of psychology, really. But psychology comes later, you see. The nervous system comes first. So if we can address it on the level of sensation, we are really addressing the capacity of the nervous system to be here, right? I didn't go into it fully, but if the nervous system, the brain can't be here, we are just, no matter how much willingness you have for presence, it's not going to really help, because there is no physiologically, there is no capacity to be here. So we need to be able to address it on that level, and when we do, that really changes capacity. It brings us into the present, like brain in itself, by itself, there's parts of our experience, like memory, certain types of memory that are integrated by the brain, but some are not. And when that past arises, the brain can't tell you that that's the past. The brain can't discriminate. So basically, when it arises, you or anybody we are experiencing as if it is happening right now in this moment. So when, for example, there's certain circumstances in life and fear arises in response based on the past, right? The fear is based on the past. The brain can tell you, hey, this is the past. What you are experiencing is like, oh my God, that situation is scary. But it's not that situation that is scary, you see. What's happening is that there is a fear response based on the past. But if we can't meet it here, you see, then it's going to look like it's the situation that's present. So it's very key, the nervous system is very key I find, for inquiry or for being able to be present.
Mm-hmm. There's Anne raised her hand.
Okay.
I'm just going to unmute you, Anne. Go ahead. You're unmuted.
I can see you, Anne.
Hi, Neelam.
Hi.
So, Neelam, I can't see you. Let's see.
Oh, how come? I don't know.
Now I can. Okay, so something, I don't know if this is exactly what you want to talk about today, but can you explain what collapse means? Because I seem to be getting into presence and becoming more relaxed. But when I do that, I feel relaxed, but I tend to fall asleep. So I don't know if I'm in collapse, like
Right,
a
right, right.
rap song.
There are two reasons. There are two reasons, and why you would be falling asleep. There are two options, two possibilities, right? One is genuinely when we relax sometimes, there has been so much tension for so long that you genuinely are tired, and that means it's natural. Right? And sometimes when the nervous system has been in a lot of habitual tension, fight, flight, or freeze, right? And it starts to relax, you start to feel a little tired, which is normal, you see. Normal, right? Because it's a normal state. Like actually you are tired, but you can't know that because your nervous system is constantly going. The other reason why we would fall asleep is because there is no capacity to be here. Sometimes even we sit in satsang and suddenly we get really tired and just want to fall asleep. That means we have hit a certain place, in which we are not able to be here anymore, you see. We are not able to be here anymore, right? And now what happens in the nervous system is just going to go into freeze or collapse, and you just want to go to sleep. So which one of those do you think, Anne? I want to see more, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, speak with me again.
If she, Neelam, if she speaks, she'll be on the screen. Go ahead.
So which of those do you think you are experiencing then? Because there are two options, really, right?
Yeah. I can identify with both of them equally. I feel like I'm exhausted from my life in a way, and that I have that it's almost hard for me to just allow myself to just do nothing and just relax. So I think it's calling to me to do that, but at the same time, I feel like when I'm in that state, I'm a little shut down. Like when I feel very relaxed, I don't know, I'm a little, because I still have that, I still have that maybe not complete trust and the vigilance, to like not completely rest. So, you know how you say like we're not, in order to be present, we are at rest. And
so in those moments, and I hear you, I understand. In those moments, the best way you will be able to check is if you come back to sensation. In those moments when you're starting to feel so tired and asleep, falling asleep, if you come back to sensation, you would know if you just simply tired. It happens and it's okay, and actually it's good for you because that's like a learning for your nervous system, that your nervous system can actually let down also, which it hasn't learned, right? It has learned have to always be fight, flight, or freeze, right? You have to always be, in anticipation that something is going to happen. But you know what? You come back to sensation when that's happening, you would know.
What will I know? What will I know? Because
what would you know? You would know that you either are just genuinely tired. You would know that. You would just feel tired. Or you come back to sensation and you feel that you are really in a shutdown.
Because I come back to sensation and I feel like it's too much work.
Too much work in what way?
I just I don't know.
Well, you know, it's hard. It's kind of hard theoretically. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's probably collapse then if it's too much work. You know, but the question is, are you genuinely tired? Because there are two kinds of tired. There's the tired of just really like on letting down. You know, okay, honestly, that's fine. You know, Papaji was very generous. You know, somebody said to him once, Papaji, this person keeps falling asleep in satsang. And Papaji said, well, if he falls asleep in satsang, then he wakes up in satsang too. So there's no problem, you see. So the falling asleep is not a problem, right? But if you're really genuinely tired, let down. Let yourself be there. Right?
Well, let me just ask you, so if it is, you know, I think it's probably a little of both, like, you know, but if it is collapse, the times that it's collapsed and it's too much work, or, you know, I try to go into sensation, but I keep slipping into zoning out. What
That's
else?
collapse. That's collapse then.
What else do I do though? What do I do?
You just need to you just really need to find somewhere a place in which in any way you can touch on sensation. In any way. I don't care if you lie down, I don't care if you're sitting, I don't care what you're doing, but somewhere where your attention in any way can go back to sensation.
Even a made up sensation?
Not made up, like anything. Like when I'm sitting here right now, you know, I'm feeling the pressure of my leg on the chair, you know, that sensation, right?
I know, but there's a difference between like reaching down and touching like a cold glass of water and feeling that sensation, or the going in, just where am I at right now?
And that's why we can either do it practically right now, or we have to do it together some other time, because practically the only way we can really get it is if we are doing it.
But when you say go into any way to go into sensation,
so when you are in that kind of like it's too much to even do, like what kind of experience is that? How do you experience it? How does that show up?
Well, it happened to me on the call on Wednesday with you, on Wednesday night. I was so relaxed that I just didn't feel like thinking, or, you know, I was very relaxed. But
then it's just relaxed, you know, then there's no problem. I don't see any problem.
Because I don't feel my true nature as being, I don't feel awake and alive. You know what I'm saying? It's not a relaxed that's awake and alive. It's a relaxed that's kind of zoned out.
But on that call, when you were so relaxed, was that okay to be so relaxed?
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. And that's good, because that teaches you something, see? That teaches you something. That teaches your nervous system something. And it teaches you that it's okay to relax like that. See? Because when you can do that, then you can be here also.
All right, so one thing that you said I don't get, when you said if I feel like it's that I can come back and go into that I can try to go into sensation. And I said, you mean a made-up sensation, or because I can reach for the pen and hold the pen.
Not a made-up sensation.
That's a made-up sensation to hold.
Not a made-up sensation, but the state you are really in. The state.
Okay, so to go to the inner, yes, and feel something.
Whatever it is in that moment, right? Whatever it is. You know, okay. if it's that complete relaxation, just feel that. Mm-hmm. Just feel that. It's not somewhere out there. It's where you are. That stage where you.
I know, but you know how sometimes you say touch, hold the pen, or.
I understand, but that's different. That's when you are sitting with something, when it's really challenging to be here,
Okay.
when a lot is going on, everything is going haywire, and you can't get a hold of anything. Then do something practical like this. Hold an object. Notice your feet on the ground. Just bring your attention back here when there's like so much going on that you don't know where to start even, right? But in that situation, you already resting. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
So the only thing you can keep noticing is the state you are in, and not you don't need to reach for anything anymore. You need it in that moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Right?
Right.
Good.
Thank you, Anne.
Good to see you, and it's good to see everybody. It's nice to have a visual. I like that.
Mhm. Good, good. Neelam, I'm just, I just want to add something to this question.
Okay.
Um, you know, I often find in meditation classes that I teach something very similar, which is that people who are not used to meditating, when they start relaxing, which means they start coming out of fight or flight mode, right? The only way, the only thing they're used to in terms of relaxation is before they go to sleep. So when they start relax, when the nervous system starts to relax, they have a tendency to go to sleep. And it's really interesting that it seems that even at the level of the nervous system, and I think that's what people learn in meditation, is they learn to be present and relaxed. So they learn to relax without going to sleep. You know, they learn to relax the nervous system, to come down,
Sure.
and to be here. You know, and it's actually not, it's a capacity that they have, but if it's not you know, if it's not learned, they don't know how to be here when they're relaxed. You know, it's actually, most people don't know how to be here and relax. They just know how to be here when they are really kind of, you know, focused, and the nervous system is very geared to being very present in that very adrenaline way.
But you know what could also help is in the beginning to keep eyes open. That's how the brain gets a message that we are not sleeping right now. And sometimes that helps because, you know, that sometimes can help because it gives that information like, okay, we are here, we are not sleeping. And that helps to reset that and be here, you know, rather than just sometimes sitting with your eyes closed when a lot of past is present can just, you know, reenact the past. The past is just moving through the brain and the nervous system, and it doesn't quite, because the brain doesn't have enough information about present. Well, we are here, that's, you know what I mean? Then it can process it differently. So sometimes that helps, you know, like let's just sit with eyes open for a moment and just see, okay, this wasn't information, you know? And so then the nervous system starts to respond differently, you know, to being here.
Yes. And, you know, my sense is the other challenge is that people go into, and that's what Anne mentioned, you know, when they start to relax, they go into zoning out mode.
Sure.
And so I don't know how you would see it, but in my experience, my own personal experience.
Sure.
I notice that because it comes with certain, it feels very relaxed, it's very comfy, but it has a certain flavor, we know that it's a zoning out flavor because we're not, there's something just too, the presence isn't full. It's kind of very thin and out there.
It's like being asleep still. It's just more awake, but still being asleep. Really.
Yes.
You know?
So it's like somehow both these tendencies have to somehow, it's like we have to learn to recognize them, in a very practical way. And that very practical way is a kind of, it does come with sensations, with certain kind of, I call them taste. The taste of zoning out is a very specific taste, it's like a flavor.
Sure,
and
sure.
when you recognize that, it's like instant, oh, okay, yeah. So when it's recognized, then we can bring ourselves back.
But that's why I speak a lot about being here as, a way of giving enough information to the nervous system and to the brain, especially when past is present at any time, so that understanding the physiology and knowing that it needs that to be able to process it, because then it can just really, the past can then move, it can be processed rather than us just, falling asleep on it, so to speak, right? So, sitting with your eyes open for a moment and noticing sensations, that brings attention to the nervous system again, and that causes that alertness of just being here. It's all here. You know what I mean? It's because what you're saying is like it's a state. It's still a state of like something, right? It's not just presence.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So Neelam, I'm aware that somebody else raised their hands.
Okay, very nice.
So Bill, I'm going to unmute you.
Please.
Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, Neelam, thank you for joining us today and bringing your wisdom to share with all of us. I'm currently going through an experience of being with and healing from cancer. And, I notice I'm on two medications right now. Actually three: a blood pressure, a blood thinner, and also a steroid. And I notice there are times when, like I have hopefulness and it's like I have a future to look forward to. And then there are times when I start to feel depressed and kind of lack energy. It's like there's no hope there. Right. And then there are also times when I'm like very reactive. It surprises me, especially after all of the meditation I've done. It's especially with family, it's like all of a sudden, these people have been loving me through this experience. I'm like quick tempered with them. They might, let's say we're having a conversation, they might disagree with me on something, and all of a sudden, fight or flight gets triggered. And
the steroids can do that too, heighten your reactivity.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. And I do want to say, throughout this time, there are those moments when I'm able to take a step back and kind of witness body-based, medication-based bill is, having an experience.
Can we go back, Bill, a little bit to when you started speaking? Can we go back a little bit? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
When you said, that you have been dealing with cancer. You said you have been dealing with cancer.
Yes.
Can we just take a moment here, Bill? Can we just stop right here for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
Just really, because that's like when you say that, that's already enough. You see, already enough to be here. You know what I mean? To be here with. Right? So I would just pause for a moment, just for a moment, and just can we all let ourselves right now be here with this? Mm-hmm. Good, beautiful, Bill. So what happens when you do that? When you just slow down like that? When you just give space to this, because this is so much already,
Yeah.
This is a lot, you know what I mean? When you just here present with it like this, what happens? What is your experience? And I'm just curious, you know what I mean? I'm not looking for anything, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, it actually gives me an opportunity to be with some things that I'm not allowing myself to be with.
Sure.
And, and that is like the story and the reality of being with cancer and really not knowing, if I have a future. And
Which really what I want to say, I just want to interject. I mean, it's so nice, it's so good that you are able to have that moment, and we'll have more. But the truth is, nobody knows if we have a future.
yeah.
Like honestly, I don't know if I have a future.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, because moment by moment, it's an unknown.
Yeah.
So in that moment, it's just really a reality of living. The reality of living is an unknown. That's kind of the basis of living. It's we don't know. But you know what I mean? It's just really is like that. But let's just go back to just being here for another moment. Because, yeah, just that's all you have right now. That's what's happening. Right? The other times there are other things, but right now this.
Well, I can step back and again just kind of witness all of this. Witness the stories around cancer. Witness what I'm experiencing as a result of taking these medications. And just connecting with, the peacefulness, the stillness, the infinity.
But also in part why you are able to connect with that right now is because you did give yourself a moment to be here. You know what I mean? We sometimes think like presence is this thing out there that we have to go to.
Right.
And presence really is wherever you are with whatever is going on. That's where presence is also. Where you are letting yourself be here with whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate you kind of encouraging me to connect here And I just feel that, you know, all these new things that I'm experiencing kind of pull me into some old patterns, some pull me out of being present.
And that's what I was saying also, you know, that in a time of challenge, our capacity to be here is less.
Yeah.
And then also the past arises, right? That's what you're saying. Right?
Yeah.
So you know, what we can do is, no matter what's going on, we can work on the capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That's no matter what, you know what I mean? Like, we can either just kind of give up on it, you know, or give into it or whatever, or we can just say, can I just be here?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just take a moment and be present here?
Yeah. It's interesting because sometimes I think the pull away from the present moment is so strong. It's like all of a sudden I become very stupid when it comes to, you know, all that I know about awakening and enlightenment and bringing the power of bringing myself into the present moment. It's like all of that just goes away. It escapes me.
We are all stupid in that way.
Yeah.
I assure you, we are all stupid in that way. When the past arises, you know, it looks so real, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It looks so real that we feel like, yep, we really have to do this, you know?
Yeah.
We really have to do this. You know? But that's also such an amazing opportunity then, you see?
Mm-hmm.
An opportunity, because here you are, right? You have the opportunity to be present to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like almost two different kinds of thinking, two different kinds of logic. You know, when I get sucked into the kind of sensation,
Instinct, survival, right?
mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? So that's why, you know, what I'm suggesting is, can you, if you can, spend a little more time just being here with however you are.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing the sensation of it as whatever is present. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what that does, it grows your capacity to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You grow capacity by being here. You know, every time you can just say, okay, Bill, let's just be here for a moment. You know, I know it's challenging because there's so much going on, but then let's be here in a moment, for a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's really amazing. You know what I mean? When we can do that, because it grows our capacity, right? And then what I also find, you know, I find that in my own experience, because I'm dealing with a chronic illness for many years, you know, I'm finding my own experience that, you know, being here is really, you know, if we do it for no reason, then it's very healing too.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least what it does, it grows our capacity in a way that despite of the challenge, we are still able to function.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really amazing. I find that really amazing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know what I mean? It will be easy to just give into it or give up, or, you know, go with the, you know, contraction in the nervous system, or we can just be here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very, very amazing. And it's not easy because, you know, illness is challenging. It challenges everything in your life, you know. It affects everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if we just put the energy into, can I be here?
Mm-hmm.
Can I be here with whatever it is, you know? So that really grows your capacity. And that's what matters ultimately, Bill. That's what matters in life, in death, in illness, in whatever, you see. It matters, can I be here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just to add a little bit here. Yeah, when I'm in that survival mode, it's kind of saying to me, what could be more important than this?
Exactly.
You know, yeah, it's just so, it has such a grip.
And that's how you know it's the past, right?
Yeah.
Because it's saying, what could be more important than this? Whoa, there is something more important, and that's being here.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. And so I can hear the voice, the survival voice saying, what's so great about that? You know,
No,
what's
what I had to learn is that when stories of the past arise,
mm-hmm.
and I had to learn that a long time ago, but sure, that was very helpful when I started to have my challenges with health. You know, when past arises, I just don't give it attention.
Mm-hmm.
When past arises and says, what about this? And what about, you are going to die, you're not going to make it. It's not my business, see?
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts are not my business, right? My business is, can I be here?
Mm-hmm.
Can I be here? And that's not always easy when there's challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But that's ultimately what is the foundation, you know, like the rest is just, you know, and I'm sure we all get caught in moments in it, but if you can just see it like, well, wait a minute, that's not my business. My business is to be here. See?
Mm-hmm.
Can I be here?
Can I be here?
You know, because survival, are you really in charge? You know what I mean?
Mm.
You know, is it in your hand? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you really do something, you know? So
It appears when I'm in that survival mode, it certainly appears that way. Like I have
can you really
control.
actually, do you from here, are you really in charge of survival? Are you the one that is deciding this, do you think? Are you going to survive or not, on when and how, and are we the ones?
Yeah.
No.
No, it's kind of a delusion.
Yeah. And it's a strong delusion, because when it arises, you see, that's why I say when the past arises, it shows up in our physiology and it looks very real.
Yeah.
It says, I'm going to die if I don't do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like anybody's coming at me with a knife or,
Exactly.
you know, like my mom or my sisters, you know, they're just sitting there, you know, maybe disagreeing with me or something.
Good. Well, just take another moment right now, Bill. Just take another, and you know what I said before this.
Yeah, that's very helpful to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just take another moment here and just notice, what is it? Yeah. Like just being here for a moment. What is that like?
Well, it's very peaceful, and you know, it's like there are no problems. There's no survival issues.
Sure.
There's also this feeling of, you know, being connected to the collective on this phone and
Sure.
or on this Zoom call, and yeah, and I'm just connecting more with like a warmth and just kind of a loving presence my heart.
Sure. Notice that, Bill, and just notice that, because that's how it really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's reality. Everything else is the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean it's not going to arise. It doesn't mean, but we need to, when I said we need discrimination, right, for awakening and freedom, that's discrimination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the difference, like, oh, this is true,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, good. Beautiful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Just take another moment of sitting. I don't see Grace. I don't know if Grace disappeared, but just take another moment here. Okay. Oh, Grace is here. I can see her now.
Yes, I'm here.
Hmm.
I'm here.
Okay, Bill, is that good for now, do you think?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Neelam.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let's see anybody else who wants to speak.
I just there's a message on the chat thread, which
Okay.
I just wanted to read out from Anne. She says, "Honored to be on this call. Bill brought me home." That's so beautiful. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Bill. And Bill has been on other calls and has shared his joy and his connectedness. And Bill, I'm so grateful to you that you came on with your doubts and your fears and your not knowing, because, I just feel in the end, when we're here, we notice that there's, at that level, there's an up and down of, when we're talking about the nervous system, when we're relaxed, we can connect. And when something comes up, when we're in a state of, fear or worry or whatever it is, anger, we disconnect, and we're, as Neelam would call it, we're in the past.
Mm.
And it just feels so important to,
Sorry.
sorry, it feels so important to just to know that we can present, not just when all goes well and we feel connected, but we can be present when things don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It's still possible to be present. And I feel that's what Neelam's strength is, that she's able to direct people to that presence with that, when the nervous system kind of goes haywire and, starts reacting and taking us into disconnect until it's seen for what it is.
Mm.
So thank you, Neelam. I felt that was very, how we just get each other at such a kind of, I don't know, such an animal level. So when Bill starts connecting, Anne connects too, and everybody else connects as well.
Of course.
Mm.
Of course.
So thank you, Bill. That was lovely.
Thank you, Grace.
To hear from you, and to really be courageous enough to just bring yourself to this as you were today.
Mm. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Neelam, now I'm wondering, I'm just going to ask whether anybody else wants to speak to Neelam. And like I said, you can either raise your hand by clicking on the participants button and raise your hand that way, or you can, just say you want to speak to Neelam on the chat thread, or you can also type a question on the chat thread. Okay, doesn't look like, whoops, there you go. Bill asks, can you share about your experience with Papaji, Neelam?
What would you like to know? Which part? What would you like to know? Anything? It's a long story, so how much time do you have?
Well, what was most meaningful for you about, being in his presence, and how long were you with him? And I'm curious about your relationship with him now.
Everything was meaningful with Papaji. So I'm not going to go far into the beginning because it's going to be too long of a story, but it's a good story though, but it's a little long. At some point, maybe I just start with this. At some point in my experience, I used to do a lot of different spiritual things. And I was a devotee of Mother Meera, and I was for some years before meeting Papaji, and I spent a lot of time just in blissful silent meditation. I could spend hours just sitting in bliss. But when I would get up from the meditation, I would experience extreme suffering. So at some point, and that, there was like a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I don't remember. And at some point, there were some other things before, but it doesn't matter. At some point, I remember lying down and this thought arose in me, I want to meet somebody who is going to show me what is beyond this, beyond going from this extreme bliss to extreme suffering. And maybe, like 3 weeks later, where I was living, there was a flyer about satsang in the house where I was living at the time. Never heard of like a Western woman giving satsang. There was Gangaji. You know what I mean? And I read the flyer and I thought, interesting. She like didn't spend like her whole life in a monastery or anything, So I felt attracted to it. And back then she used to travel like for a month to an area. She would come to an area for a month. And so there were several satsangs. So I saw that, I went to the satsang. It was a little overwhelming, the love that I experienced there. So I kind of backed off from it and then didn't go back for a little while. And then I went back. And when I went back, I had this, my mind completely dropped and I had this amazing experience of just being here. And I have written her a letter and she invited me to sit with her and read the letter, that I was sitting, the ocean of love, everything beautiful, and then I was sitting in a satsang and then at some point I saw Papaji. She always had the picture of Papaji, but I saw his picture that one time for the first time and I realized in that moment, that's my teacher and that's where I need to go. And there were people in my life already back then, because people would come and sit with me and they would experience physical healing or they would experience bliss. And they would say, oh, you don't need to go anywhere, what do you need, right? But I really had this strong feeling, strong urge that Papaji is the final destination, So about 6 months later, and then, I had these doubts also come up. Oh, maybe I shouldn't go, I didn't start family yet. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And then Papaji came in a dream, but I didn't even recognize him because he was so young in a dream. And he gave me this yellow rose and he said, cut through the dream. So I went to India, long story short, everything was significant in a way that seeing Papaji was like, like Star Trek, you know what I mean? Like when you see this embodied presence, and also Papaji was very big, physically big. It was really amazing, to just meet him in person, first of all, right? But also just being in satsang, but I found myself a little bit sitting back in satsang, and like I was waiting for something, I was like, what are you going to show me? You see, I have had all these different experiences already, right? What are you going to give me? You know what I mean? And then I'm not going to go on all the details, but I went somewhere and I really realized, that I'm not really devoting myself to this. I'm not devoting myself to being with Papaji. I'm just sitting on a sideline, and I have written him a letter, and he said, well, I said 1 foot in the ocean, 1 foot on the shore. And he said, that's not what you came here for. You came here to know your true nature. So then I realized, I need to really devote myself to it. And devote myself to it meant, following whatever the impulses were arising for me in the way to be there in satsang. Like if there was an impulse to go and see him in his house, or if there was an impulse to sing a song for him, or if there was an impulse to write a letter to him, I would just follow that, you see. And long story again, but until one time I asked him to sit close to him in satsang, and he read the letter. He said, okay, come up and you can sit here. And I was sitting on the floor next to him. And when he was speaking to a student or some student, everything he's speaking is true. And I realized in that moment that I can completely trust, what he's saying, completely trust. And, I walk out of that satsang and I'm going for dinner with some people, and then suddenly this fear of death arises. And I'm still kind of on the sidelines with it a little bit, like go there, not go there, I'm just kind of still a little bargaining here. And then I walk out on the street. This is like an Indian restaurant, I walk out on the street, and there are these 3 young Indian girls. They come up to me one by one, and each gives me a little flower, silently, wordlessly. They give me a little flower, And in that moment, my heart just breaks, and I realize I just have to go and sit with it, So I go home and I just let that fear of death be here, and that happens very quickly because there's that impulse to run to Papaji, to be at his feet, and then as I'm sitting there, the world disappears, I'm still seeing it, that the walls disappear, everything disappears. And at some point the body comes back, the sense of the body comes back, and that is a long time, like in it there's no time, but then later I realized long time, bliss and all sorts of things, and then I write this letter to Papaji, describing this. And as I walk into the satsang hall the next day, I realize now everything arises in presence. Papaji arises in presence. As before, Papaji was this thing out there for me, you know what I mean? This amazing teacher out there, Now suddenly just everything arises here. Everything arises in me. You see, everything is present, including myself and including Papaji. So I give him the letter, and whatever he says, what he says. I spent about 6 months that time, in India. I went a couple times more before Papaji passed away. That's all I can say about it, I think. There's more, I'm sure, but I think that's about how much I can say. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Does that answer your question, Bill, you think? Oh, my relationship with him now. You know, coming back from India, I still had an extreme attachment and devotion both to Papaji and Ramana. And I had to constantly, you know, my thing of waking up in the morning, I would read Ramana, I would look at Papaji's picture, there will be constant, you know, connection until at some point I realized that even reaching out for Papaji, that's past also, you see. And so that eventually fell away, you know, as a physical thing, you know, I mean, because in times of challenge, I realized at some point there was something was arising and there was this reaching, you know, and I realized, what is that? You know, there's nothing to reach for, right? You know, even Papaji is not a person, you know what I mean? In that sense, it's not a physical thing, you know, Papaji is present, you know, so my relationship with it is I'm here. I don't have a relationship with it. You know what I mean? That's my relationship with it. I'm here, you know, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neelam. And thank you, Bill, for that question. It's, you know, there's always a bit of juggling for me because I'm happy for questions to be asked, and at the same time, you know, we have a certain topic.
Well,
but Neelam, I do feel that what you shared was very meaningful because it spoke to facing the fear of death, which really drives all of the nervous system, doesn't it, ultimately? And when...
It's really the foundation of our misunderstanding of why we believe we are this body.
Yeah.
Because this body is not permanent, you see. And if we believe that that's who we are, then, you know, death is our destiny, right? And so that's all we know, you know what I mean? But when we face the fear of death, we realize, oh, death is just an experience that arises in presence, right? That's what it is. You know, presence is our true nature, right? So that's really key because it does take us out of identification with the body, and it just brings us into knowing that we are presence, right? Very key.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Good.
And, you know, I think we need to come to an end here. So I was wondering, Neelam, whether there's anything that you feel you want to add to what's been shared and said.
Well, the only thing I can say is really challenges are natural, normal. That's what I want to keep saying, you know, it's unavoidable. If we are looking for life that doesn't have challenges, that's not here, you know. And the only thing that we can do is how are we going to be with it when it arises? That's really that's what we can really learn, right? And, you know, that's when I talk more in other times or in other programs about the capacity of the nervous system to be here, that's what helps, right? What helps us to know that there are some things we can do, like a sensation-based inquiry process, you know, that would help us to be here no matter what arises, right? So, because, you know, we can't avoid challenge, but we can grow capacity to be here. So, very key.
Thank you so much. You know, Neelam, I just feel the beauty of, you know, how you speak about presence and the nervous system. I feel it's so helpful. It's so it brings something in that is not usually talked about, and I just value that. I find that very precious. So thank you for sharing that with us, because I think especially in this series, the clarity of saying challenge cannot be avoided in life. Life comes with challenge. And we can learn to be present to it. We can learn that it doesn't need to take us out of presence. It will, that's guaranteed, but presence hasn't disappeared in the meantime. That's that's what I hear in your...
It's an opportunity, if we can recognize the past for what it is, if we can recognize that the strategies and the survival and the fear and the worry and the future, what's going to happen, is this going to happen, or am I going to survive? Bottom line, am I going to survive? We can recognize, not reject it, not suppress it, but recognize that that's the past. If we can say that is the past, let's come back here. Let's see what it is like here, right? Is it worry about health? Is it worry about money? Is it worry about, this or that, or living situation? Like, okay, yes, let's come back here, so, because here we find not only presence, but we find a solution oftentimes too, what to do, what can I do? Nothing oftentimes, but sometimes there's something, so we find it here.
So Neelam, I would have a last question to you before we stop, and maybe you can address that quickly. You mentioned something just now in terms of your relationship with Papaji now.
Sure.
And personally, I find it helpful when I feel challenged to actually reach out to beings who I know will support presence, support presence, because they are very present and have been when they were in the body, very present. So, or maybe beings like that are not present, that haven't been present in a body. But we all know, probably we all know, whether it's teachers or whether it's beings who we feel support us. Like for me, one of these beings is Jesus. He can be very present to me. So my sense is when I'm lost in reaction, reaching out by asking for help to be more present, is actually very helpful, because I find that the moment I ask for help, I'm already more present. That the help is instant, as it were. It's like it helps to come back to presence. And I was wondering what how you would respond to this. It's really about the role of prayer, of asking for help,
right.
and of when we're in the illusion of separateness, actually using it to ask for help to other beings, so that we come back to truth, which is unity, which is love, which is already healed. But when we're lost, we're in that illusion of separation. And I find that asking for help, relating, connecting to other beings who we know support our presence, can be extremely helpful.
It used to be like that for me. It used to be like that. And I also see the role of the teacher, like what Papaji was for me, or what I'm for some people, or for other teachers, or for some people, is really a place where we can reach out for guidance when we need it, right? So it used to be like that, right now, I find my being here is much more just being here, is much more radical, meaning, if let's put it this way, if I know that there is something that is going to help me, like if I'm dealing with some challenges related to my health, for example, if I know that there's something that is going to help me, I'm going to reach out for that. But when it comes to presence, I know that the only thing I can do is just be here, you see. It's kind of radical, but Papaji was very radical, He radically just pulled out the rag, and just said, hey, here you are. You know what I mean? And that's how it is for me. And I'm not saying that I don't ever need any, reflection, or especially dealing with the health issues. That's where I would say, if I need some help, I always say, reach out for help when you know you need it, right? But in my inner process, for me, I don't go out anymore into reaching out. You know what I mean? This is how it is. It used to be different though. And I, as a personality, I'm very devotional. So when I was devoted to Mother Mira, my whole house had all the Mother Mira pictures that I have put different, I have made into paintings and other things. So, I still have Papaji's pictures everywhere in my house, or Ramana's pictures. You know what I mean? I'm just very devotional in nature, but that reaching out is just not here anymore. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it didn't work in the past, because it did. It really did. And it's needed when it's there. You know what I mean? But right now, it's like, I know what really helps is when there's a challenge for me, I need to sit down and just be here. I know that helps. And I just do that, you see, because I know that very directly addresses whatever is going on right now. And that's, you know what I mean? So if that's what's arising for anybody, I'm encouraging that, you know what I mean? Because it is helpful when it's there, but it's just not like that for me at this moment anymore, So it used to be, but it's not, you know what I mean? So it's kind of how it is. So
Yeah, I think it becomes less and less. For me, those moments are very rare, but they do happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when it's there, then it's useful, when it happens, when it arises, then it's like, I always say anything that helps, whatever helps. If it helps you to come here, just do it, right? Whatever it is. So.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, Neelam. And thank you to all of you for being with us, for being here. And I know it was Neelam's first experience on Zoom. And, it's different because you're all really here, visually, which to the nervous system often
But I
means...
like that, actually. I like that. Yes. I mean, this is new and it's great, and I'm enjoying this. But I like to have the visual. It's actually it's actually good. So
yes, it's lovely. Yeah, I think that's why it's used more and more. So thank you again, and thank you for supporting these offerings also with your donations. They're very appreciated, and we'll see you again soon. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter list, you can do so on living-from-love.com. At this point, there's only one more session planned on depression in 4 weeks' time on the 29th of June. I think it's the 29th, I'm not sure. Or is it the 22nd maybe? Anyway, you'll see it on the website. And but there may be more coming. I'm certainly think that there's 2 more in the pipeline, but they're not finalized yet. So thank you to you all. Thank you to Neelam again for being with us.
Yes, and visit my website. We have some other programs also, so visit my website for
Yeah.
information. Thank you for hosting, Grace. Really appreciate it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you to all of us.
Everybody.
Bill just
Yeah.
says June 24th is the next event. So it's on a Sunday also. And Neelam's website is neelam.org. And yeah, so that's it for today.
Good to
Wishing
see
you well.
Patrick, I'm seeing you, Lynn and Lon and everybody. I'm Rob. People that I recognize. Hi, it's nice to see you.
Wonderful.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. And
Bye.
all best wishes to
We'll see
everybody.
you soon. Take care.